long vanished. It's by Chief Seattle. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is within the Aboriginal territory of Suquamish, the people of this clear salt water. Expert fishermen, canoe builders, and basket weavers, the Suquamish live in harmony with the lands and waterways along Washington's Central Salish Sea, as they have for thousands of years. Here the Suquamish live and protect the land and waters of their ancestors for future generations, as promised by the Point Elliott Treaty of 1855. And are we ready to start, Abby? Or should we wait a few minutes? Abby? Sorry, we're ready to go? Okay, excellent. Perfect. So, let's see. We're happy to have you all here. How did you like seeing the land where you live, Bainbridge, up on there? Pretty cool, right? Yeah. Round of applause. Well, I'll be introducing, Jen and I will be moderating the panel tonight, and I'll introduce Jen, and then she'll introduce our filmmakers. Jen is a writer for Tidelands magazine, but she does a lot more than that. She is a community organizer and a connector of other creatives. She's a wonderful mom, and she used to be my neighbor, and I'm sad that she's not my neighbor anymore. So Jen, I'll go ahead and give you the microphone, and we can...
All right. So, like she said, I've either written about these women or worked with them in different ways, and I just thought we need to get them all together because they're three incredibly talented. Because they are three incredibly talented women with great projects and accomplished careers. So here we have Emma, born in New York City, grew up in England, and then was in LA for many years before coming to Bainbridge Island. And next is Rachel. She grew up in Santa Fe, spent many years in LA, and then came to Bainbridge. And Anisa grew up on Bainbridge and now lives in the thriving metropolis of Paulsbo. So I was going to start with, or did you want to start with your question? Okay, yeah.
So I was just interested, since we're all here, like, what is your relationship? Can you hear me better? Sure, thank you. So how does Bainbridge inspire you as a place? For like good ways, bad ways, like what is your relationship to Bainbridge being here and how it relates to your work?
So, yeah, when I first moved here 6 years ago, I was like blown over by the beauty of the land and the so many stunning parts of Bainbridge that I was just like, I have to make a movie here. And I started thinking about, you know, all the different scenes that I wanted to see in terms of from a cinematography point of view, you know, like driving along and looking at the light coming through the trees as you drive down some of the roads, and the sparkly light on the water at Crystal Springs, and all these like just magical moments on Bainbridge. So I think it just lends itself to beautiful cinematography, and then the people, getting to know some people on Bainbridge who are just like basically angels who helped make the movie happen, and just a cool community of art supporters and good people, and very different from LA. I had a lot of friends in LA, and I'm not going to be negative about it, but I think that we're all a bit burnt out in LA, really, and it's all a business, and so you lose focus of the love of it and the magic. And when you come here, you sort of feel inspired again.
Ditto. No, I'm kidding. Seriously, though, I agree with everything you just said. Yeah, as it turns out, having only lived in deserts prior to living here, I'm not a desert person. And so when I got here and it was like the mist and the trees and the water, I was like, oh my God. And so just writing, you know, like Ingress is like, I started writing that in LA, but then I got up here and I was like, oh my God, yes. And it's just, it came to life. And the community and the support. And as Emma said, I think the thing that has most inspired me is, you know, for the first time in my 15 plus years of doing this, like when I moved up here, I started feeling like I was an artist again. And like people were interested in what I was doing as an artist and not as like, how can I make you money? Or are you going to make me money? Or can you give me an opportunity? And it's just, yeah, I feel like I came up here really burnt out and kind of losing faith in myself and my ability to do this. And being here in this community kind of like revived me and my love for this work. So.
Well, I definitely agree with the other two, but I did also grow up here. So kind of growing up in a more rural area, you have to make your own fun and draw inspiration from your surroundings a bit more. So the creative process for me started early and was very much inspired by some of the things I observed as a child here. So much so that my most recent project, Finding Chaz, we filmed it at the school that I was attending while I first conceived the idea. So down to having the actress who played the lead sit in like the same exact desk that I was, sitting at when I first started drafting the story. So I don't know, the area just holds such a special place in my heart because it shaped the person that I am today, good, bad, all aspects, and I'm just overjoyed to be able to give back and kind of shine a spotlight on Bainbridge in a new way from like my own perspective. So.
All right, so I love to ask creatives or business owners, anybody, about their risks and challenges during their projects. And Emma casually mentioned the other day that she had a panic attack during the middle of hers and then filmed herself having it just for maybe behind the scenes. Yeah. So the question is, you could talk about a risk or a challenge or talk about how you got through it, or any or all of the above.
Right. That's just a little question. Okay, so I had never had a panic attack before. Well, I had seen them because there was one in my script, but because I'd seen someone and I was like, oh, that's what it looks like. But for me, it was very different. A bad thing happened. Okay, lots of bad things happened. When you're just about to start filming and it's low budget, you're relying on a lot of favors all the time. So somebody's saying that you can have a free truck for your grip and lighting, and then that falls through because it's a free truck and their uncle needs it for his business, or somebody's got an ADU, but someone's aunt's moving in for 2 weeks, and then you've got to scramble. So anyway, all of the things that go along with low budget of you scrambling all the time and having little mini heart attacks every day leading up to production. My actual panic attack moment was, and anything which was challenging I'd record, because I thought, oh, well, just in case I do a behind the scenes where, I don't know, but this is interesting, I'll monitor it. So one of the leads of the four, so it's an ensemble, and one of the four leads, gosh, that was a story in itself. I can't, I'm just reliving it. Deep breaths, Emma. She dropped out in a way. It was a back and forth with the agent, which was a bit of a nightmare. But anyway, basically said goodbye, my dear, to one of them, and had to recast that part a week and a half before production, having spent 7 months trying to find these 4 kids and realizing, like, I've got a week and a half now to find somebody who looks 18, is great, can do comedy, can cry, can do drama, can do all these things. Oh, and is preferably a local. So all of this, anyway. So I had my moment of a panic attack, and I recorded it because I was like, oh, this is what's going on. And then I just felt my whole body shutting down, and I couldn't really move. I was like, this is a weird feeling. Maybe I haven't eaten anything today. Am I having a low blood sugar moment? And I was kind of like, but then I could feel my heart going. Anyway, it's fun. It's a fun feeling if anyone hasn't felt it. Ooh. So that was that, and that was my moment. And then I hate such a cliche, lean into the moment. It's so annoying people say that shit. But I did. I leant into that effing moment, and I prayed, and I had to just have a lot of faith in that moment. So that was it, really.
Yeah, I have a few moments on Ingress that spring to mind. So Ingress, I wrote it, I directed it, and I starred in it, which was madness, but wonderful. But there were a lot of days I had this kind of shorthand with Sienna, my producer, where I would walk in and I was like, I'm either having a driving the train day, a riding the train day, or a running behind the train day. And we would just kind of have sidebars where it was like, I'm having a running behind the train day. I feel like I am not in charge. I don't know what's happening. And those days were very stressful. But I think, to Emma's point, I think some of the most beautiful moments for me were those moments where I thought I knew what something was supposed to be. And then I showed up and something forced it to be something else. And instead of fighting it, I just said, okay. And then every time it was better. Yeah. Every time. And I think that was, one of the big takeaways. I think as far as like those kind of stories, the one morning, I think it was our second day of filming. We were shooting at a house on Hidden Cove, and it was a windstorm the night before, and trees had fallen in the road. And so it was early, like we were all driving there at 5 a.m, and we get down Hidden Cove one way toward the house, giant tree blocking the road. So I was like, okay, no problem. There's another way in. So I went around, all the way around the other way, another tree blocking the road. So it was one of those moments where I parked, the other cars parked behind me, we all just kind of stared at this tree, and we were like, screw it. And we all got out and we moved the tree. We got to the house, we set up all the lights, we set up everything, lost power. Generator came on, we were like, okay, hope our sound guy's good. And he was, and you'd never know it. But it's just, again, it's like, what do? You roll. You can't reschedule. You don't have enough money. So anyway, but it all works out. And those stories are great in hindsight. At the moment, they're very, but yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, I think indie filming is like one big like, oh, this is going to be a really fun story to tell people later. And then, but like at the time, you're like sitting in a corner, like actually sobbing because you're like, this is never going to work out the way that I want. But it's cool because you get to wear, as a result, like a bunch of different hats. Like one day, unexpectedly, you're on a Zoom call with an entertainment lawyer, and like that's not in the budget. Or, like you're wrangling your family members to do craft services for you because the crafty person was like, hey, I'm sick, or like I can't come in, or whatever. But I think the next project honestly needs to be doing an indie film about indie filming, because there's no way that you could make this stuff up like in a script. So yeah, it's for the love of the sport. I think you have to be a little bit insane to purposely seek it out, but I don't know, it was the time of my life, so for whatever it's worth.
I think it's amazing that it seems like such a feat and a marathon to just like to write it, right? And then filming is like another marathon. And then, post-production is another marathon. That's, the distribution, the film festivals. But I always think of filmmaking, especially indie filmmaking, it's like you need 100 things to fall into place. If one of them doesn't, you don't have the movie. So I think it's really, I know what goes into it, so I just think I have so much respect for all of you to you guys did it. You did it, you pulled it off, you filmed it. So.
All right, so this question is the one that's like, how is it being a woman in the industry?
Well,
I liked how you started the other day.
I don't know.
It's not going to be a problem. I'm just a person.
Yeah, exactly. I was delusional in a lot of ways, but having come from England, moved from London to LA, the sexism in the old country, and my French friends say the same thing, and Italians. I've got a whole bunch of friends in LA who have worked in the industry in their countries, and there's something about LA or America, I don't know, that is it was a nice surprise to come to LA and to have, I thought, a lot less sexism, and I didn't notice it as much until I decided to write, direct, produce a feature film, and that was, in some cases, I noticed that I noticed some pushback there, that it would have been nicer for me to have been a man in the room talking to an investor, or having my husband there to be a support. And the reason why I say that, and I hate to say that because it's so, I used to resist that idea. I just thought you were judged on your script, or yourself as an artist, or yourself. And so I sort of resisted that idea, but until I spent a year in these meetings, and then I thought, it's the certain comments that you hear, and you're like, oh, I wonder if they would say that if my husband, was in this, just little weird comments that came out, like, where are your children? Like, oh, that's a weird comment to come out, isn't it? Well, they're at school. I was really confused. So there was some weird comments that sort of showed that it was a little bit awkward for them to maybe invest or trust a woman in this sort of powerful position, maybe. So that was a bit eye-opening, honestly. But to get sort of bitter about it, and to be and to let it get you down, that wasn't going to happen. I was pissed off, and I was bitter for about a day, and then I got my boxing gloves back on and went back out, because that's what you got to do.
First of all, just on the positive side, I think I've spent a lot of energy, and I know, I've talked to both of them about, it's like we cultivate, like by cultivating more relationships and working relationships with women, we start to change that dynamic. Because one of the biggest issues in Hollywood and other places is that there just aren't enough women represented in the room. And so you're always a minority, and then you're always diminished. And I think that, as that changes, and as we have sets, like the 2 sets we had here on Bainbridge, we're pretty close to gender balanced. And having women in producing roles change the dynamic of the set. And not to say men can't be wonderful producers, but there's an energy that women bring of this kind of ability to nurture and have an eye on many things that I think women do so well. And I saw the whole dynamic change. And I think that that's the power of us, hey, I have an opportunity to bring more women into the fold, let's do it. But I think on the LA side, kind of to Emma's point, is like I always expected that sexism would feel like really obvious, like, oh, that's a sexist interaction, like that's because I'm a woman. But instead it was always very confusing. It was like walking into a room doing a fantastic pitch and then just leaving feeling really weird and being like, why do I feel weird? And then, it's because I'm a woman, and that just sucks. And I think the most sort of icky version of this for me that was kind of my eye-opener when I was in my early 20s is my very first film was a film called Don't Pass Me By that I wrote, produced, acted in, and we ended up having this hard drive full of footage that we needed money to finish. And me and my partner at the time, Katie, we went to AFM, the American Film Market. We put our suits on, literal suits, and we practiced our speeches, and we were very professional and ready to do business. And I printed business cards, because that's what you do, and I put my number and my email on it, because why wouldn't you? And I went and I networked with all these men at AFM. And the second day I was there, when I was driving home, some man called me from a blocked number and harassed me for months. And it was just I was so mad, because I was I wasn't there being sexy. I wasn't there being on display in any way. I was just trying to be professional and be in the room with you. And that sucked. And so I think that's a big part of where my career has blossomed and where my passion has really been on changing this dynamic and giving more women representation and seeing more female perspectives, because it becomes harder to put us in little boxes if there's more of us in the room. Yes.
I think in a lot of ways I felt overly prepared, and I was a little bit naive, because during my high school years, some of you might know this, I was a cage fighter. So I was male-dominated industry, okay. I thought I had it completely on lock. But the difference is between a boxing gym and the filming landscape is that it's going to be a lot more overt, you know, in a gym. Like somebody will literally just say like something really gross and you'll hit them and that's kind of the end of it. But it's definitely more nuanced on a film set. And that said, I was extremely fortunate to have a very balanced group that I, you know, as the EP, I'd been able to hand select. So some of the producers that I brought on were my biggest cheerleaders, women who were so much more seasoned and experienced and really maternal towards me throughout the whole process. And that in itself was just like the best experience I could have asked for. Even down to at one point, I'm trying to watch the screen after a take, and I'm like, yo, I'm 5'2", and everybody here is over 6 foot, and they're like, step stool. So, I mean, I don't think there was a way to tell a story like Finding Chaz that is so centered around female empowerment and kind of stepping out of boxes and not being one thing than by having a crew of people who fit that bill as well. And so, I don't know, I had an overall overwhelmingly great experience, but I still did notice things that make me want to make waves in this industry and in this community and be able to help people have an experience similar to what I had. So.
Okay. Let's see. So, well, what's our time check? Okay. Well, I have two things. Do you have questions for each other now that you've heard some of the things you guys are chatting about? Or do you want to talk more about your projects since you haven't really introduced projects? There is time for them.
Well, okay, I feel like that's kind of like an oversimplification. It was Muay Thai and stand-up kickboxing. I did at one point like qualify for the national championship, which is pretty cool. I fought for a title, but you know, ultimately I was like, I kind of enjoy having some brain cells left. And like, I thought my ears were kind of starting to cauliflower a little bit, and I was like, hell no. So, you know, we stepped more into like the creative field, but I still do from time to time want to revisit. And my next project that is like in its infancy is the setting is a boxing gym, because I just have too much gold. Like, you know, it's got to be told. So yeah, look out for it.
Nice. All right, well then why don't you talk about your projects? You can talk about your movie.
Just other things. Right. So we filmed on Bainbridge. Hi. Sorry, I'm just noticing people. Right. Yeah. Detention. The pickleball slow-mo fight. Feature film. Yep. So yeah, we filmed on Bainbridge in the summer, and it's a sort of a modern day breakfast club. I say sort of because it's very different, but it's the most similar thing to it, I suppose. There's a lot more backstory with this film in that you find out more about sort of why they did what they did, who their parents are, and their upbringing, and you see a little bit more of their home life with the characters, and you get to know that psychology and backstory. It's a dramedy, and instead of detention, it's shot on Bainbridge, so I'm kind of making fun of Bainbridge a lot, and the school system, yay, and how instead of detention, they get group therapy, because that's what teenagers need, don't they? So anyway, it's every teenager's worst nightmare, and there's a lot of comedic moments in there, and it's a lot of fun. And we're in post-production right now, so we've never ending. So yeah, we've got a cut of the movie, and we're just sort of going in there and tweaking it a little bit now. So we've got about 2 more weeks of post-production, and then we've got about 2 weeks of color. because some of you might know when you get the footage we shot on the Alexa 35, and so when you get the footage, it's sort of a gray color. It's like not black and white, it's kind of slightly colored, but it's gray. And so that's the raw footage, and then somebody goes in and colors it, each frame, and the colorist is going to do that in a few weeks when we've got picture lock on the edit. And then composing, we're talking about music and talking to young people and friends of mine who are giving me advice on music and what people are listening to today. And yeah, trying to keep it eclectic. And that's where we are right now. We are trying to raise money as well. We're doing a little bit of fundraising here and there and trying to get a bit more funds to finish the film. But do you have an event coming up? I do. Why, thank you for asking. Yes, I'll be having an event in we're February now, aren't we? Right. I'll be having one in March. There we go. Tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. There we go. Yeah. So we'll be fundraising and yeah. And then you also have the program. Right. So there's the youth mentorship program. So I felt like I felt like I was taking a lot from Bainbridge in that there were a lot of kind angels. Kate, you're one of them. You're amazing. I see some of the scenes that you've worked your little fairy godmother wand, and I'm like, I love you. My art department, art designer, everything. But no, so there are these angels in our community who helped make the film beautiful, and I really felt like I needed to give back. And so we had this youth mentorship program which took kids from Bainbridge Island and who could not afford to go to film school and sort of taught them filmmaking, threw them in to the movie making experience, and they had a great time, and they were also amazing as well. And so we're running this youth mentorship program. We ran it during production, and I'm thinking of running it over the summer and continuing it, because we've sort of continued it organically, where it's turned into this really cool mentorship program where we've got the youngest is 18 and the oldest is 80. We've got, kids who want to go to film school who are asking people from Bainbridge who are currently at film school at USC or Chapman or different film schools, what it's like, and getting mentorship from them. And then we've got people who are in their 30s, 40s, who are working and being able to hook these people up with jobs as well. So we've got kind of this line of filmmakers, and so it's kind of fun, and we are all in touch, keep in contact, and have Zooms and networking. So I'm thinking of continuing that in some way. And the 8-year-old is my mentor, who's Kelly Van Horn, who came on board and helped produce, consult with our film. And he was this amazing producer for Pearl Harbor and a lot of Billy Crystal movies and Lethal Weapon, did a bunch of stuff. And him and his wife came and helped every day. And they live on Bainbridge, and they're like angels, and we all love them. Nanette. Everyone has a Nanette story. Anyway, that's it. So continuing that youth mentorship program, and I hope I can email you guys and keep you updated with everything. Thanks.
Yeah, let's see. So I have to date shot 2 films on Bainbridge. The first was Ingress, which is the trailer you saw, which was the microest of budgets and just populated by, again, angels, amazing people who connected me to people. I didn't know very many people. I had moved here pretty recently, and then COVID happened, and it felt like I just moved here, even though it's been 3 years. People who introduced me, who made meals, who just were part of this amazing film in a way that I, never could have imagined or hoped for. And The second film was called Inheritance, and we shot it in 2023. And it's actually going to be doing a little bit theatrical run here on Bainbridge near the end of May. Kate was our amazing production designer, so you'll see her incredible work. It's just, I can't even. And again, just featuring Bainbridge. So yeah, so both of those films are, Ingress was out briefly last year on streaming, but we had to change distributors because they just, when you're going to pay someone 20% of your profits, you want to feel like they have your back, and they didn't. So anyway, we found this amazing new team, female-led, so it's going to be coming back out end of April, and then Inheritance will be doing this little limited theatrical and coming out end of May. So that's very exciting. And in the meantime, one of the reasons Emma and I think originally connected when I first moved here and when we met, I don't remember how we met. My old manager introduced us, I think, Mark from LA. Mark Myers, yeah. But anyway, so a big part of, especially after doing Ingress and having this experience of these incredible patrons and donors and supporters, both financially and otherwise, just backing this project again as art. It really inspired me and Sienna, my producing partner at Emergence Films, just thinking about wow, yeah, almost every other art form is set up as a donor-backed nonprofit for a reason, right? Donors and patrons backing artists so that there's this opportunity for new expression, new voices, experimental things to come out of this space, where film has kind of always lived in this other lane where, because it's always been such a studio-driven system that always was making so much money, it kind of took it in this other path where it's yes, it's kind of art, but mostly it's making a lot of people a lot of money. And that kind of recently, I think it's become even more extreme as we're seeing, everything's a remake of a remake of a remake of a remake, and the new stories being greenlit are less and less. And so we started thinking about well, how can we kind of pay this forward? And so we on Ingress and Inheritance, we did a kind of a similar thing where we had people in the community who wanted to learn about film come and shadow. We mentored them. We did kind of a crash course in filmmaking, and we were thinking about how we wanted to just formalize that in some way and figure out how we could serve as patrons for, up and coming female filmmakers the way we felt we had been nurtured by this community here. And so we started, actually we just opened applications at the beginning of this month. They closed today for our first cycle of what we're calling the Emerging Filmmaker Program, which this first cycle is supporting early career female filmmakers in Washington. And we're specifically saying early career and not young because you can be an early career filmmaker at any age, and we want to encourage that. And again, we're going to be offering sort of a crash course in filmmaking. We're going to be doing mentorship, bringing industry mentors on to work with these women, and then we're going to be funding and mentoring them through the development of their first short film. We'll have them come shadow on our next set, and then the goal is for the second year to mentor them through the creation of their first micro-budget feature, and just hoping to kind of create a ramp that, I wish I'd had of just women that you could ask questions to, that you felt supported by, kind of the full ramp, so that when they leave our program, hopefully they'll feel confident that they know how to fundraise, they know how to be on a set, they know what they're doing enough, and they've got a team of support so they can go out and, from there. So we've had, quite a number of applications come in, and hopefully we'll have this cohort figured out by the end of next month. So we're very excited about that.
So this project specifically has just been a very long time in the making. It was based originally on a novel that I published in 2022. And as I said before, the first draft kind of came out in 2012. So it's about a 13, 14-year endeavor altogether. So to be in this stage of post-production now is just an incredible feeling for me, having carried these characters in this universe with me for more than half my life at this point. So it's a bit surreal to be able to look at the footage and see the trailer and see it resonating with people, and knowing just how fortunate I am to have been able to bring this to life. And of course, that wouldn't have been possible without the support that I received here as a young filmmaker, as a young person, kind of having really originally no backing or no experience in the industry when I first started. I just wanted to write scripts. And then advice that I received from people was, well, you have to make your own stuff. It's really not just enough to write scripts anymore. You have to make your own things. And so I leveraged a network. I brought people on board who really believed in it, and just how surreal it all is to have this being almost completed now, I just can't emphasize enough the generosity of the community here, not just financially, but with just their actual genuine belief that I can do this at my age and at my experience level is beyond heartwarming. So I'm just getting emotional, but but yeah, so just thank you to this special place.
Okay, so I'd like to talk a little bit about screenwriting next. Do we have any screenwriters, aspiring screenwriters, movie ideas? Movie idea? Yes, okay. Yeah, so I'd love to know like your relationship to screenwriting, how it fits into your process of like filmmaking. Is it like, do you love it? Is it just a means to an end? You know, just talk about that a little bit. And I'll open it up to Anisa first, because I would love to know, like, when you wrote the novel, like, was the film in mind, or did that come after? I'd love to hear about that process, too.
In my mind, when I first started writing Finding Chaz, I think because I was so young, I had this always like in the back of my mind that this could be a TV show. I think that's like the kind of delusion that you have when you're a teenager, is like you don't understand how difficult things actually are. So you're like, this is going to be a New York Times bestseller, and then it's going to be an amazing script, and then it's going to be on Netflix. Just like boom, 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 done. So when I was first drafting it, I visualized the scenes and the characters and everything kind of like in a TV format. Which was very helpful when I was transitioning from adapting the book into writing a screenplay. So what ended up happening was I connected with a mentor through a distant family connection. He had read some of the book, and he was like, I think that this, so I'd asked him about film school. Is it worth it? Is it worth the investment? Is it a path that needs to be taken in order to break into the industry? And he was like, no, because I would like to mentor you and help you, and like you have me, you don't need film school. I was like, okay, cool. So that was kind of like how that process started. But I had already had kind of like this delusion that this was going to be adapted for the screen early on. And I think sometimes the key to success is being a little bit delusional, because if, you know, at this age now, like I'm plagued with so much self-doubt that I didn't have when I was younger, I don't think it would have been a lot harder for me to like pick up now and start that. So I channel my 13, 14-year-old self a lot. And I advise everybody to kind of do the same, because, you know, that person is in there. That is basically Roxy, the lead of Finding Chaz. And so I channel Roxy's voice a lot, and she'd be like, why are you stressing? That's stupid. Like, why do you have anxiety? Like, what even is that? That's lame. So that's kind of just my school of thought when it comes to breaking down the barriers in your own mind and just going for what you know that this can be. So. Or do you want us to? Yeah. Oh, okay.
I have so many thoughts about screenwriting. I love writing. And it was, when I first moved out to LA, I wanted to be an actor. It was the actor track, and that's all I wanted. And then I got very frustrated and very creatively stifled by that, because you're always waiting for someone else to give you an opportunity. And what's so wonderful about writing is anytime you can just give yourself permission to kind of dance with your muses and be creative. And there's a book I love, which if you haven't read it, it's called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. And I am obsessed with the way she talks about creativity and writing and where ideas come from, because it's always, she talks about kind of this idea of you have a muse, like that you're essentially always kind of in communication with something other than yourself, where it's like we are vessels or channels almost for inspiration that comes to us rather than it is generated from within us, which is very freeing in a way, because it's kind of less pressure. It's not like I am a genius, it's like I have a genius. And I loved that distinction. So but what I love about that is, I mean, honestly, when I look back at some of my scripts, like Ingress, I watch the movie sometimes and I'm like, where did that come from? Like, I know where it came from, but like, it'll be that way for me a lot with writing, where I will have like just a scene pop into my head and I don't know what it is. Like, I'll see, so for Ingress, there was a scene actually that didn't actually make it into the movie, but like I saw a kid in foster care, like sitting on a couch in like a really chaotic room, and it was really stressful. And as the camera's pushing in, this girl closes her eyes and takes a deep breath, and then the camera pulls back out and she's alone in a totally different house. And I was like, well, that's cool. I don't know what that is, but I wrote it down, and then it evolved into this parallel reality, you know, exploration of all sorts of things. And that's like, there's a lot of books and people who will say, like, you have to do, you know, the hero's journey and save the cat and follow these things and first act, second act. And I just have never outlined first. It's just, it doesn't work for me. Like, for me, I've found when I enjoy it the most and when the best ideas come is when I just kind of, again, like we were talking about on set, like I just let it come. I don't know what it is yet, and that's okay. And I'll write until I run out of things to write, and then I'll take a break and I'll go for a walk. And honestly, the best thing I've found on Bainbridge, go for a walk in the woods. Every time I go in the woods, I'm like, damn it, why didn't I bring my phone? I have so many ideas to write down. I'm like, don't forget, every time. So sometimes it's like, it's such a process where you have to really figure out your own schedule, but it's like, if you can give yourself that space to be like, my writing day does not mean I have to write all day. It's like, write, take space, meditate, go in the woods, let ideas come to you. Like, it's helped so much. And I'll say one more thing and then I'll pass it to Emma, but I had a playwriting teacher in college who said something to me that really just stayed with me forever, which is, she said, you have to give yourself permission to write a shitty first draft. Because so many of us, I think we get into our heads and we write like one sentence and then we're like, is it the or the? I don't know. Oh, is it sunset or sunrise? Like, it doesn't, you just, and then you will never finish your script. So it's like, just let yourself write, be like, that's terrible, and keep going. Oh, that's awful, I hate that, keep going. And it's like, when by the time you get to the end, you actually have a sense of what you've written, and then you can go back and you can edit it in a much more thoughtful way. But if you self-edit too much throughout the process, you won't give yourself and your genius the chance to like get out whatever is trying to come out. So that's some advice I would pass along.
I love what you said about the walk and the relaxation, because that's 100% how I write. It's knowing that it's this idea of power and relaxation. So I think of it as like, the power is like the writing itself, and you're like, you're writing, you've got that power. And then the relaxation is however you are, however you meditate. So if you're someone who has a very busy life and you're like me, I'm picking up my kids here, I'm driving here, I'm going everywhere, you know, running around, there's not really much time to meditate. But my meditation is really in the car when I'm driving. And that's kind of my quiet time of thinking about what I've just written and the next scene. Or just when I'm about to go to sleep, your brain, just before you go to sleep, your brain is in a state of alpha. And it's when, I can't remember exactly, I think it's like something to do with two sides merging just before you go to sleep. There's a point where you can have your pen and paper or your iPhone or something by your bed as you're just drifting, and you're meditating about the next scene. Then I find that that's the state where I just have so many great ideas that I can just grab it and go like talking to my phone or make notes. And then whatever those notes are, that's my work for the next morning. So then I wake up and it's like, right, I've got my notes and now I'm going to write the scene. And then the same so it's a cycle. Every morning I wake up and I have my notes for the next day's work. And yeah, not judging yourself, like, that was rubbish, I'm going to carry on. You know, just like, yeah, don't be hard on yourself, don't judge yourself, go for it. But yeah, definitely the idea of however it is you guys meditate. I think I watched a Tarantino interview, I love, obviously, the amazing Tarantino, and he was saying how his meditation is in his pool. So he writes in the morning and then like he has a swim, and his notepad is at the end of the pool where he's swimming in the Hollywood Hills or wherever his lovely mansion is. And then he, you know, relaxes and writes down the scene for the next day in note form, and then that's his homework for the next day anyway. I thought it was quite cool. But anyway.
That's great. All right, time for Q&A?
Yeah, and let me just, so we have a Q&A, and then if anybody who's streaming on YouTube wants to write in the chat a question, we can check on that also.
All right. Okay, so for the Q&A, you can ask questions, but we'd like to know about you. So let us know, like, Are you a resident of Bainbridge? Are you a creative? Are you an artist? Are you all the things? Are you interested in film? So who's got questions?
So I'm in kind of the college application process, and I'm super interested in filmmaking. It's definitely something that I want to pursue, but I'm not sure if it's like the best idea to go directly into a film school. And if one of you guys did that, like, what do you think the benefits of doing that or not doing that would be? Yeah.
I have such mixed feelings about college in general for artistic professions these days because college is so expensive and there's a lot, especially in film, there's a lot you can learn in a classroom, and there's so much that you'll learn just by doing it, either yourself or going and being on a set as a PA or as an extra or in any capacity, just because there's things you just can't learn in a classroom. So I went to a liberal arts college. I didn't go to film school. My first film kind of was my film school, which was both wonderful and terrible. But I think it's a very personal experience, and I think like if you can make that decision not from a place of like fear and scarcity, like what if I like put all of my ducks in this thing and then it doesn't work out and I have no life skills or whatever those voices are in your head. It's like if that's what you feel drawn to and you have an opportunity, then like trust it. And there's always, and especially in this day and age with AI and all these things changing, like who knows even like what jobs are going to be in 5 years. So I think I've been really trying as I get older to just listen more deeply to like my intuition when it tells me like I want this, even if it doesn't make sense, and just being like, yeah, okay, I'm going to trust you on that. And then somehow or another, you know, you'll find your way. But I don't think there's a right or a wrong way to do it. Like you can't mess up, which is kind of a terrible answer because it's like, it's better just to be like, don't do this, do this. But I don't think you can make a wrong choice.
So my opinion is the opposite to my husband, who co-directed. We always have the opposite opinion on everything, which is amazing when you're co-directing. It's a special relationship. Anywho's, so he went to Loyola Marymount University. He loved film school, and he learned so much. And he had a great time. He's all about education and being in the school. He loves learning. So he went to film school, got a degree, and what happened was everyone at film school hired him for the rest of the next 20 years of his life were all people from film school. So they started production companies or commercials, or someone was a grip and needed a PA, or someone was a gaffer and needed a grip or whatever. So they hired each other. That was, you know, so in some ways it's great because you've got that network that grow together at film school. And I'm the opposite. You learn on set, you learn as you go, you figure it out. I think it depends on your personality as well. Like if you're someone who can just sort of jump in and network and figure things out, and if you want to be, you know, producer more, or like where you like, because I think if it's really technical, like a cinematographer, it's really nice to go to film school and have those camera and know about all the different cameras and the lenses, and all of that is really useful. So, yeah.
I would just advise to get on as many film sets as you can in between now and the final decision, because you might get on a set and realize you actually like a certain aspect a lot more than the one that you think that you're drawn to. And what they said about there not being a substitute for a real world experience. You know, it's like going to law school and then never going into a courtroom. There's just certain things that you can only learn like being entrenched in it. And you might realize like, yes, this is exactly what I want to do, and I'm going to film school. Or you might be like, this still isn't hitting the way that I thought, and that's okay too. So there's absolutely nothing to lose by just getting as much experience as you can in as many different areas of a film set as possible. That would be my advice.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Charlotte Webster. I go by Charlie. I'm a retired naval officer. I was in grad school after that a year ago when I got diagnosed with breast cancer. And I had, you know, that moment where you say, you know, this is it. Like, what do I want to do with my life? Why, you know, why am I living? You know, what do I need to be doing? I was in grad school. I dropped out of grad school and very immediately felt compelled to move home here and to become an artist. And when you have that moment, what does that look like to you? What is your, this is it? Yes, this is it. This is the idea I'm going to pursue. There's a big difference between putting something on paper in theory and bringing it into reality. And how do you decide, this is my idea that I think the world needs to hear?
Great.
So the question was, how do you know? Okay, so when I started writing the script, Detention, about 4 days in, I was like, maybe a week into writing, I was like, oh, I'm making this. This is happening. And I didn't need a visionary board. I didn't need to motivate Jack. Shite. I was going to make this movie. And the good thing about writing is that you're visualizing every single scene, every moment. And for me, I was visualizing, you know, the locations on Bainbridge. Like, I'm going to shoot that on that coffee shop, or that's going to be there at Battle Point. So you're really, you know, visualizing it in your head. And then also with the characters, you know, visualizing I was having conversations with these actors about how I was going to get them to that performance, or like, was I going to do an improv before running into the scene, or what did that scene need the actor to hear to make that scene better? So there's all of these little tiny details as you're writing that there was some magic with what I was writing. I believed in it, and it just was like, okay, this is, I believe in this. I know it's good. I don't give a rat's ass who says what. I'm making this, you know? And it's that strength of not really caring, but just knowing. You just know, like, this is good. I'm doing it. So yeah, it was just like really rock solid motivation, strength, and a little bit of being delusional as well, to be honest. Because I was very delusional. I love that. I went to LA. I was like, you're welcome. Here's my script. And they're like, yeah, that's really interesting. Who's attached? I'm like, well, you know, nobody at the moment, but, you know, it's all good. Whatever, business. But I still had that confidence of like, nah, we're doing this. So I did get punched in the face a few times, but it didn't matter because I was doing it. I'd already shot it in my head. I was like, this is easy. I just have to shoot the damn thing, but I've done it all. Anyway, that was me.
I think how I would answer your question is like, you don't know when you're starting. Like, I have so many scripts so many of my scripts, like, so Inheritance, which I just shot in 2023, I had written the first draft 10 years prior. I have a Western that is the next film I'm going to be doing here in Washington, and I wrote the first draft of that, again, like 12 years ago, as this very like heteronormative, like dusty Western, and now it's become this like witchy, feminist, incredible thing that like I wouldn't have been able to conceive of back then. So I think it's like, you don't know. But for me, what I think, it's like, if it keeps kind of poking you, where it's like you put it down and it's like, ooh, I have another idea, and you go back to it. Like, that's the quiet voice that tells you, keep going. And it might be that you finish it and you're like, cool, no idea what to do with this. That's happened to me. And then you're like, okay, and you put it down. but then maybe like 2 years later you'll be like, holy shit, that thing, and then it's time. And that's how it's always happened for me, is like, I'll write it, sometimes that's the time, sometimes it's not. And because I was me and I was so frustrated by that, and I would be so angry, and I would try and I'd push and I'd try to make it happen, but it was like, it's not the time for this. But when it is the time, it's just like, it's like flow, and it just happens. And I think the trust comes from like, I don't know what this will be, but I trust that I'm interested in this and I want to keep exploring it. And that, as long as that's true, keep going. And if you lose interest in it, set it aside. It might come back. Very often does.
I think with Chaz, I was always just getting signs. I mean, first of all, there's so much of my personal experience and heart and, you know, lived experience wrapped up into the characters and into the storyline. So it's like, if somebody's like, oh, this isn't realistic or this isn't good, I'm like, okay, well, that's just wrong, because it's true. And during the course of writing the original manuscript for the novel, and then the first drafts for the script, I heard feedback like from beta readers who were like, maybe if I had seen this, I would have had a different experience as an adolescent. Like I would have had a better high school experience, or I would have felt a certain way. I would have felt less alone. I would have felt more seen. And like, that's like when the light bulb just goes off in your head. Like, okay, you can impact your audience with these important stories, and you can change the course of things by like illuminating somebody's perspective or making them feel seen. And it's like a nod, like, I see you, I lived this too. And a lot of people, even if they didn't live it themselves, know somebody who did. And so that's the power of media, and I think that's why I've been so drawn to it, particularly with this story, because it just covers so many bases, and then it does it in a humorous way, which is, you know, a medium that everybody can relate to. And I think when we can tell important stories with humor, the sky is kind of the limit on who it can touch. So.
More questions?
My name is Lucas. My question for you guys is, how do you know who's the right person to shoot your film?
For me, I was so new to everything that I honestly, full transparency, didn't give it like that much. I was like, you want to shoot my thing? Okay, cool. But the jokes aside, like, I was so lucky with who I worked with. When somebody believes in you and they're excited about your vision and they want to do a narrative project and they like the script and they like the characters, I think that kind of, I mean, obviously that's not like a hard and fast rule, but when somebody's as passionate about the project as you are, and they are thinking outside of what already exists and being creative with their vision and sharing that passion with you, you kind of have your answer. Like, if the collaboration is natural and you're aligned and they can bring things that you wouldn't have even considered, like from your own area of expertise, that's kind of where the magic happens. Well, I was on the set, and like the creative team, the cinematographer, the DP, they were coming up with ways to just like add to the story, like making the camera almost like a character with lighting and with, you know, shooting a scene in a way like I never would have thought of as just like a writer. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this just elevated the script so much. And that's the on-set experience that everybody talks about, where you see the vision coming together and it just becomes so much better than it would have been if you were like a one-trick pony, like micromanaging everything yourself. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, I think it's like with any relationship, right? It's like you go on a date with someone and you just kind of either feel it or you don't. And my cinematographer is a man named Dan Clark. I've worked with him on many projects, and there's just, when we first sat down, I could just tell, because he'd read the script, and just hearing him talk about it, like, what does he see? What does he envision? And like, he made some mood boards and stuff, and I was like, well, you're in my head, and actually you're better than my head, so sweet. And then also, our personalities, it really is, I mean, it's such an important relationship. And like, especially on Ingress, where I was doing so many things, like he became like an anchor for me, where I needed to know that I could trust him. I knew that he had me and he had it. And I could ask him a question and I knew he knew where it was coming from. And some of that stuff you just build over time. And like we went through the trenches together on this harrowing project in Indiana where we drank a lot of whiskey and just cried. That'll bond you to a person. But I think, you know, something I like to do when I'm meeting a new person or when I have a script is I'll make some mood boards, or I'll put together like a music playlist of like visuals and sounds that feel like the world to me, and kind of share those and see if it's aligned. Another thing I think a lot about is like, what kind of a director are you? Like, I'm not a very technical director. I'm the director who goes, I want it to be kind of like bluish and foggy and like creepy. And he's like, oh, so you want this light and that thing and this, that. And I'm like, fantastic. So it's like knowing what your limitations are so that you can have someone who's like your complement and who can work with you in an effective way. Or if you're very technical, you might not rely on that so much. So I think knowing yourself and kind of like building your team with people who are better than you at the things you know you're not as good at is like the best thing you can possibly do.
So because we own a camera rental company in LA for 15 years. So I've got about 100 cinematographers that I've worked with over the last 15 years. But you get to know, I need 3 things from a cinematographer. One, they need to be amazing at what they do. So they have to be artists. And they also have to be confident, because someone who's a great artist can get insecure, and then an insecure cinematographer is someone who asks for the moon with regard to equipment, because they're not relying on themselves as an artist. They need every single latest paintbrush that has ever been made. So they're like, I need this particular camera, this latest lens set, this expensive this, and then you've got this massive camera package, and you're like, no, you know, we're not sub-renting that, whatever, for below our budget. So confident, you know, and then also good with understanding the production. So our cinematographer, and also actually he had 4 things. So Pete Soto. I brought Pete on actually because he has the extra thing, which was the mentorship program. Because I was like, as soon as I added that mentorship program, by the way, Lucas was on our mentorship program. What's up? Little teams over here. My peeps. But you guys, so as soon as I knew I was going to do that mentorship program, I was like, right, I need a DP now who is good with kids and can mentor and isn't going to be a diva and isn't going to, you know. And he is a cinematography teacher at Loyola Marymount Film School, and he's the head of camera sound. And he also has known Mark, my husband, for 30 years, and so he can tell, they can have screaming matches, and you know, we can be honest with each other. We can all be very brutally honest and fight for what we need on set, which I think is really important. I don't back down from a fight. And when the cinematographer is saying, no, we need to shoot this because of this, I love that passion, and I want that. Even if, you know, I'll give him some pushback and say, wait a second, I don't think we can do it for time. But he's like, Emma, this is the shot of the movie. This is going to go in the trailer. The light's coming in. We've got to do it now. And I'm like, I like that, to bring that passion and to fight for that, because oftentimes they're right. And yeah, so.
Who else has questions?
Hi, I'm Tamara. I make poetry films. It's a little bit different, very small films. I'm always very curious about filmmaking. Is not just one thing. It's a lot of hats that you're wearing, but you find your way through through some early interests. Now, Anisa, you wrote a novel, it sounds like, and so you took it from there, and that's what became the movie. I'm curious about the two of you, and were you a camera person before? Were you a writer before? Were you, you know, someone who was just making up a natural storyteller? I'm just curious, what was the spark for you?
I'll just start.
Thank you. For me, it was acting. Yeah, that was from the time I could crawl, I was like, this is for me. And then I was very determined. And like Anisa said, I was like, give me 6 months in LA, I'll be starring in all the things. And I went on a lot of auditions for a lot of one-liners, or, you know, drove all over LA and didn't get cast. It's just I just felt like for how creative I was, the amount of opportunity I was getting to actually express that through acting, other than in class or in theater, which I love, was just limited. And so I got into writing initially to write myself some interesting roles to play, which has continued. But also then I realized, ooh, I really love writing. And then I fell into this opportunity in a workshop I was in LA to make this first feature film. And I went through that whole insane process of producing. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so empowering to know that I can do this and I can empower myself. And I actually really love having a creative hand in all these different pieces. It's so, because like writing fulfills something that's very unique, but it's very solitary. And then being on set is such an incredible community experience. And acting is just this, you know, talk about channeling. It's just like this incredible dance with creativity that nothing else feels like it. And I love it forever. And also being able to be part of the creative decision making and help decide how things will look, and at the end in the edit, sitting with the editor and deciding what scenes make, like all of it is so invigorating. And I just feel like it uses all these different parts of me that, you know, acting, I think it uses a chunk of me, but it leaves a lot of things left to kind of without anything to do in some ways. And so I think this has really helped kind of keep me firing on all cylinders and be able to focus on all these things I really have found that I love to do.
Yeah, wearing lots of hats is the story of my life. Started off as a dancer early on, psycho, weights on my ankles every night, went to a boarding school, convinced my parents to go. Didn't really have a childhood. I always looked at kids and was like, who are these kids who don't know what they want to be when they grow up? Like a complete nutter. But like... So ballet was my thing, and then obviously grew 5'9", and all the rest of it didn't have 180-degree flat turnout. I don't know, and so couldn't be a ballet dancer. Then morphed into musical theatre, but unfortunately my singing voice is really quite shocking. So there was that. I didn't want to be a chorus person because that's and then moved to LA and did the acting thing and got rejected and got punched in the face. All the rejections and that you get from the acting industry. And so did that for 6 years. That was fun. And then morphed into owning. I just really like creating content. So I started writing treatments for music videos and figuring out how to film music videos and partner up with great cinematographers, and then started a production company where we started with commercials. And so I would write and produce commercials, and I love that. And I thought that feature films were for crazy people who didn't want to get paid, and who just didn't care about getting paid. So and working their ass off for years and years and years without a paycheck, which I thought was obviously completely nuts. So I stayed clear of that for about 10 years and did short form entertainment, and that was my my training really of writing, directing, all the rest of it. And also worked for Hallmark Channel, which was hilarious because it's Larry Levinson Productions, which is low budget. And so you end up wearing lots of different hats on set. So one day I'm a stunt person, one day I'm over here, driving the truck, and the next day I'm over here being a second AC. It's like film school. They just chuck you in there. And so that was good training as well. So yeah.
Did you have a question?
Hi, I'm Spencer. I came in a little late, unfortunately, but I did go to film school. I went to a smaller school for film. I was really, really excited. Film was doing great. COVID happened. Moved to New York, strikes happened. Moved back home, kind of had to rebuild myself. Was thinking about LA, but was very, very unsure. Had to adapt, like, a lot. I lost a lot of internships, cool opportunities. I was going to be on, like, a Redbox original, which would have been cool, but no. And then, of course, you know, Emma, I got on yours, and I loved every moment of it. But my question is, I've been having to adapt for a good while, you know, like the many hats. Is this normal, or is this I have a lot of friends here in tech, and they kind of question me about doing film sometimes, and I put on a lot of hats. But yeah, is this adaptability normal? And if so, I would love to hear your guys' stories, because I have a friend who's in grad school at USC, and he's not even sure of what to do after, especially after the fires and everything. He has no idea what to do. So yeah, I would love to hear you guys' stories and if this is normal.
You can't say anything about magic or alignment.
Yeah. So yeah, the truth is that all of my friends in LA are not working. I've lived there for 15 years. I wouldn't say all of them. I did call one, and he had an editing job on a TV show, so he's working. But I started calling my editors in post-production to see who could edit the film, and I got through about 10, and 9 of them were not working and had not been working for 6 months. And it's not just them, it's art department and pretty much everyone, all throughout, from people who are running the Daily Show to people who just got out of film school. So it's everyone. My camera rental company of 15 years is going to go out of business probably in April. Was that? Yeah, so that... But, you know, whatevs. So we don't, you know, I mean, it's been good to us. It's been, you know, you got to see the bright side in a way. It's been good. We made a lot of contacts. It was our bread and butter for 15 years. And then we're probably going to say goodbye to it. But, you know, you just adapt with what the rubbishy, crappy industry is giving you, and hopefully stay sane. And I've stayed sane with this, kind of, not really. But... that's a lie. We all know that. But yeah, I mean, being creative. So even if you do have to get a job, which you're like, I went to film school and now I'm, you know, working at Trader Joe's, whatevs. Just keep creative on the side. Keep that fire, you know. Listen to yourself. You're interested in camera. You're interested in cinematography. Like, that's your love. You've got to feed that, and find a way to feed that. And don't be, you know, the industry is what it is. It's going to be ups and downs, but at the moment it's pretty shite. So there you go.
Yeah, I have 2 threads on this. I promise I won't talk about woo-woo magic stuff. So do you know the Duplass brothers? They're kind of like the founders of the mumblecore DIY, like, just go make a movie. Don't give yourself excuses of not having money or resources or whatever, school of thought. And they have a book that they wrote recently. I think it's called Like Brothers, something about brothers. But anyway, what they say is the cavalry isn't coming. And I think that is so important to just internalize, because I think we were raised to believe if I'm good enough, someone will snatch me out of obscurity and give me opportunities. And it's just not really the way this industry works anymore, for the very, very small few. But it's actually not a bad thing, because it's like this new rise of independent film where it's like there's so many tools and resources for you to empower yourself. So I think if you can change your mentality from like, I need someone to give me a thing to be able to do what I love, start thinking about, okay, cavalry isn't coming. It's just me. What do I want to do? I have an iPhone. I have friends. I have a China ball light in my kitchen. I have an idea in my head. Go make something. It could be the worst thing ever. It doesn't matter. Go make it. And then go make something else, and then do it again. And I was one of those people who was so freaking stubborn. I was like, can't get a job that's not in my field of interest. It'll be a failure. I'll be a huge fucking failure. I won't do it. And years I did that, and I was very stressed about money. And then one day I was just so uncomfortable. And I got a job. I got a remote SEO marketing job, which I knew nothing about. I was an account executive. I did that job for 6 years, and it was such a gift because it was a steady paycheck. It was a job that like I cared about, but I didn't. It was a job. So I showed up, I did my work, I closed my computer at the end of the day. And then after a few, weeks, months, I got into a groove where I was like, oh, I can do this pretty efficiently. And I'm working from home, so they're not watching my hours. So I did my work. I carved out time to write. I made things when I could on the weekends or with my vacation time. Like Ingress was shot with my month of vacation. And it took the pressure off of my art needing to financially support me, which this career is a long game. It just is. Like, I have been doing this, I'm almost 40. I started when I was 22. It's just in the last few years I finally feel like stuff's starting to happen. And I was not a patient person, and I was so frustrated by that. But now that I'm here looking back, it's like, if you just can give yourself that mindset early on of like, this is a long game. So how do I set myself up to not be constantly anxious? And this marketing job I got, it gave me a lot of really wonderful skills. And I ended up going through the ranks and managing people. And so I learned a lot about running a business, about budgeting, about marketing, about SEO, things I knew nothing about that I have now been able to take into my own production company. And it's made me such a better leader. So you never know how these weird side things are going to actually help you with where you ultimately want to be.
I think it's also determining why you want to make art. Obviously, everybody wants the blockbuster movie deal or like the Netflix, selling their script to Netflix or whatever. But when I came out of college a few years ago, I had a job similar to what Rachel described. And at the time, I had turned down a much better paying job in DC to work in government, and I didn't want to do that. And so I took this job, and I felt like a failure. I, was really down on myself. The pay wasn't good, but I did exactly what she described, and that was how I ended up publishing the book. And so that was a huge stepping stone that ended up setting my career on the trajectory that it is now. I wouldn't have recognized that at the time. I was like, I'm working this lame job. It's online. It's not furthering anything. Why did I bother going to college? Complete doom spiral. But I think it's important to acknowledge that we're all kind of in a weird state of transition, and things are really fluctuating right now between AI and just all the uncertainty altogether. And nobody has it, as far as I've observed, nobody has it like figured out. Like, I put all of my savings into my project. That was my grad school. I, took out loans. I busted my butt to fundraise. It was a huge risk, and it might pay off and it might not, but in that way. But the confidence that I gained and the esteem that I got from making this art, to me, is invaluable. And so when I think evaluating why you want to make art, like, that's what you should call into question. Like, why do I want to do this? Is it for money? Nothing wrong with that. I want to make money too. But is it for money? Is it for the love of it? Is it for helping people? Like, only you know the answers to that. And I think that should be at the forefront of like your decision making, and when you feel upset about the way that things are, because like we all feel really stressed and uncertain about the state of things.
Which makes me think about, I'll let you close it up, right? Or did you have something to say about specific?
Yeah, so as the media art studio lead, I just wanted to chime in here because these time in general, like, is just unprecedented. Like, just not film, the time, right? So we'll set that aside for a second, but that's unprecedented. Film kind of follows tax incentives. So if a state loses its tax incentives, the bigger budgets don't go there. My partner and I were in LA. We started a family, and we moved to Savannah, where there was so many productions happening, and they had to fly people in. We moved there, everything was canceled. And by that time we were like, well, we're West Coast people, so we moved back here, and we were just starting to find our creative community. And then I found out I was pregnant with twins the week everything shut down for the pandemic. So, there's ups and downs. And now we're kind of on the other side of that. And there's programs like Washington Filmworks, which is really trying to bring back like tax incentives, really trying to bring like the community here. So my 2 cents would be find your creative community, find your circle, make the small things, I feel like we're all kind of here to like build community and see these things, because I love LA, but LA is on fire. Like that's, we don't know what's going to happen there. That's a big flux. We don't know what's going to happen with tax incentives. We don't know what's going to happen with the environment. We don't know what's going to happen with our country. So, find your creative community. Art, that creativity, that'll be your sort of base and your solid foundation, and build from there. That's all I want to say.
Anytime you've got some shit going on in your life, that's gold. Anytime you can think about moments in your life where you've nearly lost it, that's your gold. Lean in. I hate that shit, but lean into that and create from there, because that's your superpower. You're unique. You're also awesome as well, and I love you. But I'm gonna start singing now. No, but seriously.
Can I ask a quick question before you?
Yeah.
Real quick. So I'm wondering, because I know all of you and love all of you.
I'm gonna give you the mic.
Yeah. I'm wondering if the 3 incredibly talented ladies up here are ever going to work together. Because, seriously, if you put all of your heads together, it's a mighty force, and I think funding would just pour in, and it would be like a super project. And I would totally be your production designer. Just kidding. No, but seriously, truly, I would love, that's something I know people would love to see, and maybe that'll happen, seeing you up here. Is that something possible? That's my question. What do you think?
Yeah, they have to finish their projects, and then they'll. So I just wanted to thank everyone, and also this is.
Oh, I was going to say, actually, Rachel's got this filmmakers meetup group, and it's got a really lovely synergy to it. That's you need to come to. But yeah, it's gathering some nice energy and creativity. So I hope that, and JP as well. And so I hope there's a lot of crossover with all of us. So we've got something.
Yeah. For anyone who wants to come, we meet the first Wednesday of the month, usually I tried moving it around, but just for simplicity, the Bainbridge Ale House down by Bima, 4 p.m., 4:30? 4. Yes. And if anyone wants to be added to that Google group and to come, just shoot me an email, rachel@emergencefilms.us. I'd be happy to add you to the list. Let's keep building this team.
If you want to be added to that, if you didn't check in, there's a sheet of paper by the door, and if you write your email down, or put a little star next to it, and then we'll make sure to add you to the film group.
That's exactly what I was going to say. This is the community. So put your email on the lists. I'm going to be hosting a fundraiser for Anisa coming up soon. Come join. And we'd love to see more of you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Can we give everybody a round of applause? Class dismissed.